Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Warm Gamer Dad. Doing something a little bit weird this week by live streaming this. Not because I wanted to do a live stream, but because my phone went completely up the spout and has been sent off to repair. And any of the recording stuff that I wanted to get for free had massive red watermarks in places you didn't really want watermarks, and I didn't want to pay for something that I've already got on my phone, which does the job a lot better. This week we're going to be reviewing issue 2 of Warhammer Magazine, the Imperium magazine, which is Hatchet's new part works. First things first, we're going to look at the models. They've been Certec together, which is an improvement because some of the bags they used previously weren't good at keeping the models. So let's start with the less important stuff. You've got Rune Lord Brass, which is a nice base coat. It's very good for colours. You've got the starter brush, which, as always on the magazines, is a weird plastic brush that bends. But the bristles are still the same bristles, so it's actually a very good serviceable brush. I'm definitely going to be using that later. And the bit we're actually all interested in, the 3 Necron Warriors. As always, fantastic detail on these things. We've got a copyright of 2020, so you know these are the newest ones. Whoever takes them off the sprue is going to want to make sure they use a clipper, because as always with Necron Warriors, you've got very fiddly bits, and they suffer from the same problem that any skeletal warrior suffers from since when GW first did the big box of 20 to 30 skeletons, however many it was. You've got a lot of thin parts that are very easily breakable. The Necron army is not necessarily one for somebody who, like me, is a bit heavy-handed. I can build and assemble them. It's just keeping them in one piece when you get to the to whatever games you're playing is the issue. And as I said previously, there's nothing more annoying than having to stick a model back together. As always with GW, the detail is fantastic. We've even got lovely little bits of wear and tear on them. The weapons look awesome, and the sprue quality is really good. The plastic's got a bit of flex to it, which means that it'll take some bashing, it'll take some dropping, as opposed to some of the more solid or resiny type models. But it'll still stay firm as well. So that's awesome. Price-wise, looking on the internet, GW doesn't seem to sell anything exactly like this, 3 Necrons and that. But the GW paint kit comes with, the GW Necron paint kit comes with 3 Necrons, Rune Lord Brass, this paintbrush, about 5 other paints, and another 2 paintbrushes. So you could kind of count this as half of the paint kit. The paint kit is itself $22.50. So if you say this is half of it, that's $11.25. Take $5.99 off that. You're in theory saving about $5.25. That's a very rough guesstimate. Obviously, if you price match the brushes, price match the paints, you could put the price up higher. But whichever way you look at it, this isn't a bad deal. Next week's one at $8.99 with 3 Space Marines will be slightly less of a great deal, but you'll still be getting 4 cheaper. And this one is one of the ones where you can, if you want, repeat buy for $5.99. You get quite a few Necrons and quite a few brushes. You only need so much Rune Lord brass, so you couldn't use this, for example, to build big squads of Necrons. It might not exactly be saving you that much money in that respect. But as it is compared to the give me a second. Sticky stuff. Compared to the paint kit from whence it comes, you're making a reasonable saving. Cool. Well, the bag on this issue is a lot tougher than some of the previous bags. Again, that may be Hatchet responding to the fact that on some of the issues in previous part works, the bags have been quite weak and occasionally stuff's falling out, or it may just be the plastic they had access to at the moment. Sorry about that, it's Tourette's. We've got lovely cover for the magazine. Again, inside you've got the little bump letting you know what you can order, how much it costs, the extras you can get if you subscribe directly, and then if you pay for the premium package, you got 4 basically battle starting box sets, which is Chaos Marines, Tyranids, Tau, and Orcs, as well as some colors with the Orcs. I mean, the Orc one might be smaller, but and posters that come with them. As I said previously, I like to support my local shops, particularly the little shops, because that's how you keep local little shops. So I'm actually buying this every week from my local newsagents, or I should say every week from now on. Obviously, there was the first week, there was a 2-week break they leave, and there was a second week. So let's dive into it. Signed by Ian, our Necron Lord. First off, they've got a bit describing the Necron Warriors and showing you some of the pictures. You can see from the pictures that it's actually really quite good. The Necron Warriors are one of GW's oldest sculpts. These ones, obviously, this iteration is a new sculpt, but there was a game called Space Crusade, which was around when I was a kid, where they were listed as Chaos Androids, which, if you're aware of the background from Necron Warriors and for the space stations that several Imperial and Chaos Warriors found, a lot of those space stations, particularly the Black Star fortresses, were just sleeping Necron stations, and sometimes the Chaos guys could figure out how to get some of the systems working, or sometimes you just stumble into a room and this Necron android would wake up and try and kill you. But you didn't know it was an android, you didn't know it was a Necron then. It was just an android. The model sculpts have massively improved since then. That being said, if you ever see a copy of Space Hulk lying around in an old charity shop or something, grab it. It's actually a really fun game. But anyway, that aside, yeah, you've got 3 of the models painted up and some brief descriptions. You got a little bit of bump there, which just says Necron Warriors are deadly when commanded in great numbers. Their living metal bodies can repair terrible damage, while the volleys of their Gauss rifles, or Gauss rifles, however you want to pronounce it, I have heard it pronounced both different ways, slay the foe with robotic efficiency. Maybe they're German. I'll have to run that past the wife, see how much this lets me. You've got a nice little battle record here, which allows you to field the unit, record anything as you're doing with other bits and pieces, which is cool. Then you've got a little bit of bump on the Zarekhan dynasty. For those of you who don't know, the current iteration of Necrons is vaguely Egyptian, which kind of works with a lot of the background and a lot of the bits and pieces. The first iteration of Necrons were warriors. The second iteration of Necrons had a lot of personality for the upper echelons. The current iteration has them as kind of space Egyptians flying around, with the idea being that that's where the ancient Egyptian culture got its ideas from. It being an ancient culture found some Necron stuff on Earth or something like that. Although the Necrons, whilst they've been around for a long time, they've mostly been asleep, so the chances of the ancient Egyptians encountering Necron are fairly slim. But maybe they got it from somewhere. It goes on to, and again, I'm going to read the blurb, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. It goes on to say that the Zarekhan or Zarekhan is the dynasty of the Silent King, and the return of their leader has given them new purpose and now they strike out against any who oppose his will. So that's pretty cool. The Silent King obviously was the last elected leader of the Necrons before they all got turned into robots and their elected leaders couldn't die. So technically he's still in charge, but he did kind of set all the Necrons free before he left. So there is a bit of a thing going on there. It's then got some descriptions of Zaraketh and some descriptions of the Imperium of Man. Next, we've got Space Marines. We've got the Ultramarines, Warriors of Macragge. Again, I'll read the blurb. The Ultramarines represent the very essence of what it means to be a Space Marine. They are noble, honorable, and disciplined warriors in a galaxy divided by war and disorder. For 10,000 years, they have served the Emperor of Mankind, taking the fight to his enemies with courage and honor. It's got some nice descriptions down here. Basically, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Space Marines are genetically engineered elite warriors that fight for the Imperium, and the Space Marines are the vanillist of vanilla versions, although they've got a lot of their stuff with extra bits and pieces now, so they're nowhere near as vanilla as they used to be considered. Their basic idea was based on ancient Rome, as I said, that's many of their veterans and accoutrements. The most fundamental thing about them, and the reason they get the most backing from Games Workshop, is that they are the base Marines on which all the other Marine chapters evolve from out of game. In game, the other Marine chapters all have their own Primarchs, but GW started with just Space Marines and then said, here are a bunch of different factions and different ways you can paint them, and then start going, here are some different things that these different factions do, and then models got added, things got added. But the Ultramarines are always their base Marines, so you could always take any Marine and turn it into an Ultramarine, or you could turn it into the other chapters. But if you do that, you need to do a bit of kit bashing, because the other chapters are very specific, whereas the Ultramarines are the core product. And GW's business tactic has always been to have a core product that then you can use in various different ways, because it saves on them manufacturing, and it means as things come and go, they've still got a base product that they can always sell you. Obviously, that changes over time and evolves, but that's my dog, by the way. Actually, no, that's my daughter's dog. It always changes over time and evolves, but GW tend to swing back to the Ultramarines just because they are kind of the core base unit, and you can adapt those models to any other unit. Whereas the Space Marine stuff, for example, has a lot of the bump already on it, so you'd have to strip off pelts with a knife to make them look like salamanders. Your basic Space Marine set works for the Ultramarines, and then you can add bits and kit bash bits from other sets to make them look like Space Wolves, salamanders, White Scars, whatever you want. So get used to a lot of Ultramarine. Loving from this magazine. If you play already, you'll know about this, but if you don't, there is a lot of Ultramarine Resistance. Part of that is because there's so much stuff just jammed down your throat as Ultramarines, because, again, GW's policy. Part of that is because other factions within the Space Marines, such as the Space Wolves, are blatantly cooler and better. The Dark Angels are blatantly cooler and better. So people kind of, everyone has their favorite chapters. It's usually not Ultramarine because they're the vanilla guys. They're the guys you start with. That being said, the Ultramarines have a lot of stuff to make them look cool, to make them look unique, and are a pretty fantastic chapter. Oh, the other reason you sometimes get a lot of Ultramarine hate is because some of the writers, not naming Matt Ward's name, may have went a little over top a few issues back when writing how awesome the Ultramarines were, and they got a bit of resentment from some of the players of the other chapters. The guy's a massive Ultramarine fan, and in all fairness to Mr. Ward, why not? They're a fantastic chapter, and they've got their Primarch back. He's that dude there that you can see is much bigger than all the other dudes. There's rumors that more Primarchs are going to come back. GW have said nothing as of the recording of this video. There are bets on who it will be. A lot of people are hoping for the Lion. A lot of people, myself included, are hoping for Russ the Wolf. And but everyone has their favourites. But yeah, more pictures, more descriptions on this one. Telling you about the Ultramarines and giving you some cool stuff to be getting on with to inspire you to play and paint. Maybe pay as well. Maybe a Freudian slip there, but certainly what GW are giving you here is the base of an army. If you want your army to work, there are other no, that's not true. They're giving you the base of an army that will work. If you want your army to kick ass, there may be a few other things you want to add to it at a later point, but you'll have the core that you can add anything to. Next, we've got the how to build thing with the all-important clipper safety. Don't want to lose that arm. These models are fairly simple. You may not need this, but they're also fairly delicate, so do cast your eye over it to begin with. Second page there. Next, we've got a how to paint guide with Citadel miniatures. This is very theoretical at the moment. It shows you some of the stuff you can get. Bit of a showcase for what they can sell you, if I'm honest. I've heard nothing but good things about this this paint pot. It's got little ridges up the side and things you can use to clean your brushes and get the paint out of them, which makes them last longer. So not a bad investment. If you paint a lot of models, it'll save you money over the long run because it will prolong the life of your brushes and reduce the amount you have to replace them. I haven't got it myself, but that doesn't mean much. Next, they've got a preparing to paint thing, which they've got this lovely clean pine table. If you paint on a lovely clean pine table, by the end, you won't have a lovely clean pine table. So there are loads of things you can get. I put a bit of newspaper over it and a cutting mat. You can get plastic sheets. My son's got a little plastic painting sheet, which is about yay big, which we put on him when he paints, but that's partly because he's 6 years old. Or you might want to, in your corner of your room, have a designated painting table or area, because you will get glue, paint, spray paint, bits of sand and bits of flock there. So yeah, you don't want to be painting on this on a beautiful, nice, clean table, particularly if you're a kid or a husband or a wife or somebody who has a partner that loves their nice, clean pine table and will get upset at you when you wreck their nice, clean pine table. Point aside from that, painting clothes, it's good to wear something scruffy. This is not a painting top that I've worn before because it hasn't got paint on it, but it is a scruffy top because it came free with a shirt. But if you pick something that is a cheap t-shirt and scruffy paint with that, I often paint with shorts because I tend to sort of sit cross-legged, and that way, if I get paint on me, it mostly just goes on my legs, not my clothes. If you paint in good clothes, again, you'll run out of good clothes because they'll be covered in paint. I spent many of my teen years realizing I didn't have t-shirts without paint on and going, oh, going out, I can't with the who and the paint and then I realized it didn't matter, and women don't tend to judge you that much, and men don't tend to judge you at all on how much paint you may have on your t-shirt. And then I got all pansy about my appearance and started trying to wear nice stuff and keep it clean. Fortunately, that hasn't lasted long, and I'm back to being just scruffy. They've got a couple of bits here. You want a bit of tissue or paper towel to dry your paintbrush, and the thing underneath is a replaceable palette. It's basically a bunch of sheets of minimally porous paper, so you can paint on it, you can mix stuff of it. When you're done, you can tear it off and you can throw it away. This is pretty wasteful. I don't particularly approve of massive amounts of waste. What I tend to do is have a wet palette, which I use to death if I'm doing detail painting. And if I'm doing mass painting, I'm just going to be using large amounts and slapping on quickly when it's not really going to have a chance to dry off anyway. I just tend to use a normal palette or a tile. And when you get too much paint on that tile, you can just peel the stuff off. Or sometimes in one big lump. It's really quite satisfying, actually. I'll probably do a video at a later point on how to make a wet palette. You can buy them for fairly cheap. You can make them if there's kind of weird old-fashioned sponge. I don't really know how to describe it, but you can basically, you tend to get them in cheap shops, and sometimes in Spa. I got a pack of 3 for Spa. I'm still on the first sponge. You cut it out, put it in something like, put it in any size container, ideally one that has a lid, like a takeaway container. Put a bit of greaseproof paper over the top of it, and that's a wet palette. If you can't be bothered with those, like I say, see if you can find a tile. People always buy too many tiles. They're always selling an odd box of them for £1 or £2. And if you go into B&Q or any other hardware store, you can get a box of like 25 tiles for like a £5 or something. They're not, the small box of tiles aren't that much. The only reason tiling costs you a lot is because if you want to do a bathroom or a wall, you need tons of boxes. But if you get yourself a box of tiles and just use one until you break it, it can last you years and give you a perfectly good reusable reusable palette that you can just peel off. It's got instructions on how to paint. This is actually quite good. I'm going to highlight this just for anyone who hasn't painted before, but what it instructs you to do is take some paint out of the pot, put it on the palette, and then paint with it, and you draw the spare from the palette. The advantage of this is every time you go to the pot, if you're not careful, you risk knocking it over. And if you leave the lid up, you risk knocking it over if you move your arm to grab something. So the idea is you take a bit, close the lid, and therefore you don't spill your paints. It's actually very good, particularly with GW's oils, like non-oil Agrax. I should know because they're a little bit taller. Add to that an open paint, they're just the height. If you're reaching for a cup of coffee, you will knock everywhere and lose the paint. So that bit of advice they're giving is actually really good, really useful, and you should totally do it. They're painting the Necrons here. They're starting with a base of Runelord Brass, which is all you're going to paint this week because that's all you've got. Now, these guys are painting it directly onto the plastic. You can paint base colours directly onto the plastic. You can paint modelled. You can paint metallic colours directly onto the plastic. If you do, you'll need a few layers. The trick is little and often, so you thin down those layers and have multiple layers. I prefer to put an undercoat on myself because I'm a little bit old school. Also because a lot of the spray undercoats go on very thin and yet can leave you kind of a blackboard-like effect, which takes paint better than plastic. And also because if you're painting in a light colour like Runelord Brass, it'll still take multiple layers, but you'll be able to see areas that you've missed much more easily. Some people prefer to paint on white, some people prefer to paint on grey. Some people just prefer to use the colour, use the base colour as an undercoat and just add more and more layers on. None of these ways are wrong, they're just preferences. And again, there's what your buddies will look like after the first one. You can see they haven't painted the weapons. If you want to paint the weapons, you can. If you don't want to paint the weapons, you don't have to. If you get paint on the weapons, it really doesn't matter because the paint will just stick to the top of that paint. Be careful with metallics. They can get a bit thick, a bit rubbery and obscure detail. That's just the danger of metallic paints. GW's paints, particularly the metallic ranges, are probably amongst the best out there. I'd probably only put Vallejo above them in personal choice, and some of the army paint and metallics are just fantastic in their color and in their thickness. But yeah, GW are as good as Vallejo. I think they're as good as any metallic paint out there that's within the same price bracket. There's no, yeah. I think just the Vallejo thing is my personal preference. And as I say, Army Painter do some colors, do a couple of metallic colors that I really, really like, because they're just on the sweet spot of where you want them to be for gold and for worn gold and adding glint to it and things like that. But GW's gold, particularly since they did the Storm Host, which are all gold, and they brought out a lot of metallic paints to support that. They probably have the best metallic paints and the best range of metallic paints available right now. But that's just that. Next, we've got a little bit of mission bump, escape route. You've got a mission briefing with Necron Warriors and the Primaris Lieutenant. You're going to use the little battle board you got earlier. The setup is obviously 1 Primaris Lieutenant and 3 Necron Warriors on opposite sides of the board. In this, I'm doing it lengthways. You got the movement stats for the Primaris Lieutenant and the Necron Warriors, with the Primaris getting a movement of 6, a ballistic skill of 2, 5 wounds, a 3+ save, and a Neo Volkite pistol with 2 dice. It does not say how much damage that thing does. Necrons have got a 5 move, a ballistic skill of 3+, which is actually worse, 1 wound, and a save of 4+. So there's 3 of them. They have less wounds, less good armor, but they will get to fire an extra time a turn, which will make a difference. And a 4+ save is really not bad at all. The basis on this one is you've got to escape. Oh, it looks like the Necrons have to escape. Yeah, you've got to escape, which is the objective of the Necron Warriors. And it doesn't have damage on the dice. I can only assume that you're just rolling the dice, and if you hit, you kill. Oh no, so yeah, you roll 2 dice. I don't get it. Strange. But again, I haven't played 9th Ed. Maybe if you hit, you just roll dice, and on a 3 up or something, you wound. Right, here we go. It is explaining this. I don't know if they're going to do 2 wound rolls later, but according to this, you don't have 2 wound rolls. So yeah, you roll in the dice, and there aren't any 2 wound rolls on this, which may be a thing that happens in 9th Ed. I don't know. Sadly, I've been in lockdown so much that I haven't been able to play 9th Ed, which means I haven't been able to buy 9th Ed, which is kind of why I'm looking forward to this. Then you've got the Necron Exploration as well as many others. You win by either total annihilation or if the Necron player manages to escape. So it sounds like the Lieutenant's gone out there to spank some Necrons. So that's all pretty good and all pretty straightforward, all pretty fun. If you know whether 9th Ed has 2 wound rolls or they've stripped them out of 9th Ed, please comment in the things, because where I've been in isolation, particularly as a carer, I really haven't had the opportunity to get out to any clubs or get friends to come in for games. I'm looking at doing that in the near future, but as I say, where I'm a carer and we actually do have some issues going around, I'm still playing a little extra safe and not doing it just yet. But there you go. Right, on to the last bit, the back page, the most important bit. Well, the second most important bit. We've got, this is also the penultimate bit. Next week, it's saying what we've got, which is Assault Intercessors, which I am so looking forward to get my hands on. I love the Intercessors. Macragge blue paint, which is a fantastic paint. Even if you don't collect Space Marines, it's a nice light blue that can be very useful for detailing glass in eyes, piping, random chews and things like that. So you're never going to not use Macragge blue. It's a good solid mid blue. So that's pretty cool. And then the week after that, we have some of the cooler Necron models. When the Necrons started off, they're all 2-legged. Now you've got these babies which have 3 legs because they're machines and can now do what they want. These guys are called Scorpec Destroyers. And with them, you'll be getting lead belcher paint and your biggest battle yet, which I imagine is going to be these 3 in the Lieutenant versus the Scorpec Destroyers. May well be these 3 in the Lieutenant versus the Scorpec Destroyers and the Warriors, but I'm not sure. And lead belcher is a basic gunmetal paint. It's just a dark grey metallic. So again, you can't really go wrong with that. Looking at the picture, looks like they've got another battle mat. If they follow what some of the last ones did, you'll get a lot of small battle mats that you can then add together. And then later on, you'll get bigger battle mats that you can add the smaller battle mats to. Malbats? Which is a cool way of doing it because it gives you multiple alternates, things you can play little skirmishes on, and it gives you a good idea of little bases you can do, because it's easy enough to get a bit of A4 card or cut a piece of wood to A4 and make your own more 3-dimensional battle mats and have them laid down and then build up a larger table out of them. So that's it for this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Next week, I should be back with my phone. And where's the last most important bit? Yeah, next week I should have my phone back. So it'll be back to a more normal format. And I should even have an intro and an outro and things like that. As I said, I'm not collecting the Necrons because I'm a Space Marine fan, have been since I first started. Not that the Necrons aren't awesome. So the Necron dude that you got with the first issue, oh yeah, probably you might have the Necron dude in 3 Scopex, Scopex. But the Necron dude you got in the last issue, I'm giving away, and this one is to Stuart Hayes. I will poke you in the comments of the last episode. You should be able to put comments in this episode once I've finished streaming it, because it should record, I've been told. Otherwise, I'm going to be right pissed off. So if you put comments under the stream in this, I'll take a dice, randomly roll it, and it should choose somebody out of the comments to get these bad boys as well. And that'll be in, I think, next week's video. I think the first week was on with a 2-week delay, and from this week it should be weekly. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry about the rocking of the table. I'm just realizing that it's rocking. That's because I'm using a laptop. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you'll subscribe. And as I say, be subscribed, make a comment, anything really. Ideally not just Dot, but even Dot will get included. And you might have some free Necrons leading their way to you. I shall see you next week, guys.